Everybody, my name is Zahi, or you can call me Z. I'm the BD at AWS for EMEA for media, games, and betting and gaming. Alongside me, we've got Kevin, Senior Solutions Architect for betting and gaming. And as you can see from these real images, not AI generated, that we are jockeys ourselves. We have the experience. This was taken this morning, just this morning. And as you can see, I'm sad because I lost. He's happy because he won. So you guys can trust us. Now, before we actually dive deep into today's topic around AI and machine learning in horse racing, let's do a fun exercise, a fun betting and gaming exercise. So let's move to the next slide. If everybody here, ladies and gentlemen, can pull up their phone and access the demo. This is a demo. This is not phishing, nothing else. This is a demo. The purpose of this demo is, as soon as you open it, what we'll be doing the next 5 minutes is having a fun racing, betting and gaming game. We will all be part of a racing game and we're all gonna bet in it. I'm gonna just take a 30-second break until everybody's logged into the demo. And we're gonna open up the demo on our side as well. Okay. By the way, anybody here has a hidden talent being a race commentator? Any race commentators? No? Fine, I'll do it myself, and I do it in a horrible way. So what's gonna happen next is we're gonna run the next race just in a bit, and on your phones, place your bets. Place your bets on blue, yellow, green, or red. Get ready. Steady. Steady again. Demos always work live, by the way. They never fail. They never fail. But in the meantime, the point of this is, again, just an interactive way to wake up after lunch, but also to show you how this is a very simple demo on how we measure real time amongst users. Oh wait, did you guys start or not yet? Oh wait, it started. Come on. No, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Jockey, best of three. Best jockey out there. Best race commentator out there. All right. Oh, okay. Next race. Come on. Place your bets, everybody. Red, green, blue, or yellow. I choose red because it's my favorite color. Let's go. Race about to start, and we've got blue in the lead. Right around the corner. Yellow passes. The horses are so fast, unbelievably fast. Oh, green is out of the way. Come on, yellow. Yellow's on there. Passing. An accident. Entering. No red flags. Red's almost there. Red and blue. Who's gonna pass?
Yeah, go me.
I'm the best jockey. Great. Everybody's awake after lunch. Fantastic. Now let's talk about AI and ML. And what I would love from you guys is interactiveness. We're not just gonna blur out information onto you and here you go AI and ML. We want a bit more interactiveness. Any questions, pause us, and we will ask you questions as well to get more information from you guys. You are the customers. We want to learn more from your side as well. What today's agenda and what we'll be covering in the next 45 minutes is first an overview idea of the UK horse market in terms of the data points, or the data points just to know out of curiosity. Second thing are the customer challenges. What are the things that we commonly hear that customers ask as soon as we bring up the topic of AI and ML? What are the common questions and how do we approach that? Next, we've got the customer AI use cases. From these challenges, we build up on these use cases, followed by some concrete case studies that Kevin will share with you to show you exactly how we approached AI and ML use cases with specific customers. And then finally, we can talk a bit more about partners just so you have an idea when it comes to buyers versus the builders. Next slide. So some really interesting data points. The first data point is obviously the British racing contribution, which stands at 4.1 billion annually being invested, out of which 300 million pounds is going into taxation for the exchequer. The horse has got to stay healthy. A healthy horse is a fast horse. So we have over 56 million pounds going into veterinary research to make sure that horses are healthy, obviously. The employment, more jobs, 85,000 specifically more jobs is being created, and platforms are encouraging more and more to post such jobs. Horses, good to know, 14,000 horses available in the market. Next point. And let's talk about, okay, so AI and data analytics is being applied into horse racing. But the main 5 categories that we get to focus on around this application are these 5. The first one that you could look at is betting and odds prediction, which stands at 30%. Now, machine learning and machine learning algorithm is being applied in order to identify through vast amount of data sets that customers have to pinpoint odds prediction, to pinpoint prediction in terms of inefficiency as well as efficiency. And that's in terms of the first main use case, which is the betting and odds prediction. Second, we've got performance tracking. How's the horse doing? Where is it located? GPS tracking. What about the stride analysis? How's that going for the horse? Diving deep into utilizing AI and ML, understanding the data and understanding the performance of these horses to give a better experience for the users. And third, we've got health and welfare, which is very interesting because other than the fact that we talked about that there's 56 million pounds being invested into veterinary research, an example is the Sleep app. The Sleep app is an application that uses AI in order to identify asymmetry when it comes to the gait, the horse's gait. And an interesting also statistic when it comes to health and welfare, the percentage of injuries went down since the year 2000 to a specific percentage. And we're talking about fatal injuries of these runners and jockeys. Any idea what that percentage is in terms of injuries? Any number. Throw out a number.
20%.
20% wrong.
4.
4% close.
2.7.
2.7, even closer. One more guess, and whoever guessed it wins an Echo Pop. 1% wrong, but you said win an Echo Pop. It's at 0.2%. It's quite interesting to see that with the improvement of technology around AI and ML, and looking at that data, not only are we looking at fast horses, not only are we looking at also improving the experience for the users, but we want to maintain safety. We want to maintain safety, and that percentage is at not 2%, not 1%, 0.2%. And then we go down to customer experience and regulatory compliance. Customer experience, we want to keep our customers happy, the users happy. We want to keep them on board. We want to maintain, we need to look into churn prediction and maintain a high LTV for these users. And then regulatory compliance, anti-doping, looking into fraud behavior, problematic gaming behavior as well. All of that falls into these 5 categories. Next slide. By the way, any questions so far? All good? Fantastic. Now, let's talk about the customer challenges. I'm going to share with you what I've heard so far from similar customers, the questions that they ask and the challenges that they face when the topic is brought up. One of them is, how can AI help us detect suspicious betting patterns? Just now I was having a conversation about how bots are becoming smarter, fraudulent users are becoming smarter, and it's a bit difficult to catch up with this, let's say, this trend, this fraudulent trend, and we need to use the relevant technology in order to do so. That's one question. Another question is, how massive, so there's this data set that we have in petabytes. What can we do with it? What can we actually use all of this data in terms of media or in terms of player performance to better understand betting predictions and other performances? We don't know much about AI. How can we implement it? It could be I have a small team. It could be I don't have an AI team. So how can you actually implement AI if we don't have the right tools for it or the right knowledge base for it? Quite an interesting one, which overlaps with the media industry, is the footage. You might be sitting down on a good amount of raw footage of horse racing, and how can you use AI to for content management, for metadata tagging, as well as automatic categorization. Those are just the common things that I hear. What about your challenges? Do you have any questions that you'd like to raise up as a challenge when it comes to AI and ML?
Well,
Yes.
we've been looking at something, and we've got no experience in how to train a model, and I think for outsiders, business owners, that's quite a challenge.
Okay. No experience in training models.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're relying on third parties who don't understand horseracing in some cases, and that's quite a challenge for us.
And they're relying on third-party applications where they don't have enough knowledge around horse racing, right? Anybody facing a similar issue to that? That's a unique issue then. Anybody else? Any challenges? All good. Yes.
Challenges.
Let me pass by the mic just a second. Go.
Our largest challenge with machine learning has been getting a consistent data set with a large enough time difference in order to train the model to give us the most accurate possible outcomes and minimize that uncertainty in the results.
Anybody facing similar challenges to that? That's one. That's two. Two. Good. Okay, good. So it's quite interesting to hear those challenges, and I would love to meet up with you again, as well as with you after the meeting, so we can work backwards from that and see what are the needed steps to get to that, to solve that challenge. And that's what we want to try to do at AWS, along with our partners, along with the people we work for. What are your challenges? We work backwards from it and see what are the steps needed just to make you happy as well as your customers happy. And from these challenges, we could look at the broad AI use cases that we go through. I'll not go through each and every single one of them because I'm quite positive that based on what I'm seeing, we're all on the same page that using AI and ML is important for hyper-personalization, important for commentary, important for betting predictions. These are all use cases that we get to focus on, build demos on, build solutions on, and work with partners on that. Next slide. Now I'll give it over to Kevin so we could dive deep more into concrete customer case studies.
Actually, so I actually going to pull up the previous slide and want to just touch on a couple of points that we've raised there. These are actually customer AI use cases in the ones that will affect the end user, punter, for their interactions with AI services. So these are all very much front of house systems. So things that basically like bet result explainer. We have a lot of things that work in customer service where people messaging agents saying, why didn't I win? Or why is my trifecta not coming to the amount I thought it was going to be? And that's that sort of thing that can be really helped by AI. Now, there are some other things that sort of not shown on the slide. There's two other sort of categories that we consider here. One, this is the customer. We also have your operations side, and you also have your business side. So operations, colleague, and customer. Your operations, so things like how do you generate your own AI models, that typically was a very, not saying massively complex thing, but took a lot of required specialist knowledge. And a lot of the AWS tools that we've developed over the last decade or so have been aimed at trying to make more data systems capable of creating their own models easily without any code or any other experience. We have a service, which I'll touch on a little bit later, called Amazon SageMaker Canvas, which allows you to just basically enter a data set and say, what can you make of this? Is this a regression or is this a classification challenge? Can you find the key features that affect the outcomes of this model? Can you refine it so you can get slightly better predictions? Then can you host it so I can make inferences against it? All those things just become a single series of clicks. So there are a number of things, again, that's not shown on here. And there's also another point I want to talk about, so I'll talk about later. I'll try and weave it in, but to talk about how we can create that enhanced data set so you can make more accurate predictions with data that may not be already categorized or may not already be in a format that you can use for digital training. So we'll talk about some of the real world examples. You take a look at.
Take it up.
I'll take this. I won't do that. So this is an example, you've probably seen this before. If you haven't seen this version, you might have seen ones like it. Hong Kong Jockey Club, very well-established horse racing operator, as well as also a sports book and also a lottery operator. Have a lot of new users, looking at this challenge that we've seen a lot in the basically gaming industry, which is how do you reach out, especially horse racing, how do you reach new audiences, how do you reach sort of younger audiences? And some of the sort of common complexities and challenges those end users have are going to be around like, well, I don't know how to follow the sport, I don't know how to place a bet, I don't know what these things mean. There's a lot of terminologies of how do we break down those barriers to entry? And the very simple one that's being used here is the ability to show information overlays on broadcast to make that experience a lot more easy for those end users. Now, the example we showed at the very beginning with the marble races is actually a very similar solution to this. Well, it doesn't look the same. But what this is a combination of live broadcast streaming and also live data that you get from your horses. So like in this case, the GPS location, and also a combination of that and computer vision in order to overlay relevant information to the end users. The user can select up to 4 different horses they want to track during the race, and it will be automatically highlighted for them. And this makes it a lot easier for users to have a much more engaged experience. It differentiates them from competitors, and it also sort of keeps them as a world-class provider of technology in this industry. You may have seen this as well in other sports. So Formula One uses this a lot, and that's also what AWS helps with in this sort of overlay to give to end users a more dynamic and interactive, engaging experience, especially in sports that are very fast and hard to follow. So there's another area which we were talking about more and more recently, and is an area that I talk about in some depth, is around agentic AI. And if all of you are still catching up on this, and we've just come through AI revolution, as it were, people are talking about agents a lot. In this case, AI agents refers to a little bit more of the traditional sense of the replacement for customer service agents. So when users get in contact with your business to say, typically something about withdrawals and deposits, if you're an operator, or something to do with the services you provide, understanding how they can place bets, how they can do certain operations. A lot of these systems can now be resolved automatically by chatbots. Betson were able to implement this in less than a month, and it's automatically helped them reduce 45% of their cases that come through automatically, which actually frees up 90% of the agent's time. So those human agents are now able to spend the majority of their time working on more complex and nuanced challenges that our customers come to them with, and not just having to help people reset their passwords. So much more value out of the investments they make into their customer service agents. This is a very quick win, and this is powered by the AIDA partners. So I'm going to talk Bundesliga a little bit because they're actually a very big customer of AWS, but they are also really one of the leading sports broadcasting providers in terms of the technology that they use, and they have built themselves as a brand that is just synonymous with technology and international markets. But they were able to increase session time for an application which is called Bundesliga Live or Bundesliga Clips, Shorts. So Bundesliga Shorts. So it's a little application where you can look at the highlights of last week's matches. And then previously people would sort of hang around for about 400 seconds, which is their average. And you think about it as like people going to Instagram or going to TikTok, and you want to try and not to catch people's attention, but you want to keep them engaged. And they were able to increase it up to an average of about 650 or 630 seconds per session time just by using personalization. And so personalization is a feature of Amazon, another service of Amazon, where we are able to create personalized recommendations based only on the user's interactions and similar products. So we don't need to have any AI and ML experience. You basically just load in, here's all my products or my videos I want to surface. Here's my user data information, go and figure it out. And then it will come back with inference saying, we recommend these products. And this is basically what powers the same thing as you see on Amazon's checkout when you say, this person also bought these things. You get this weird suggestion saying, you just bought a TV, so you might want to buy another TV. In actual fact, that is a reason, because if you will buy a TV, you are statistically more likely to buy a second TV. So that's why it has that. People always ask me, who wants to do that? It's actually doing the right thing. Don't worry.
I'd like to add one more thing about this. How current companies are pulling out shorts is manually. You have 2 or 3 people finding relevant short, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of hours.
Yeah.
The point of this is that with the use of AI and ML, instead of having these 3 headcounts with the extra hours and the extra time to go through that, with the use of content metadata management, you'll be able to put out directly horse A apply in the short, horse B apply in the short, rather than finding the hours. Just a quick call.
Yeah, excellent. So there's a lot that we can do with personalization. It's a very helpful, a useful system. You use a lot in operators and also in iGaming, of that other world of betting and gaming. So just stay on Bundesliga a little bit longer. They have a challenge that lots of companies have, and it might be something that's relevant to horse racing as well, which is your target audience is becoming a lot more split of their attention. You know, there are people who've got games, people who've got multiple screens, they've got social media, they've got a lot of alerts. It's very hard to get them to sort of focus on one thing at one time. But the benefit of a sporting league such as the Bundesliga is that you have regular updates and things happen. And the idea is here is we want to be able to surface relevant information to the users as they happen, to keep them interacting and engaged with the matches going on. So even if they do sort of drift away and start looking at another screen, goal alert comes through. And not only does it come through to them directly, it also comes through in their local language with in that sort of nuanced localization. So the Brazilian version will be very different from the German version. And the information about the player will also be given to them immediately as well. So there will be instead of having this reliance on users having to click through to find the information they want, goal scored, they want to know who scored it, where did they come from, how long they've been playing for, what's their shoe size. They can get that information straight away with a single click, and that again sort of keeps them sort of that relevant information surfaced to the user again to go help them with engagement. So another little fun. Press play on that one. Yeah. So there's a little demonstration here. See if sounds like come through on my laptop. Great.
No way. I was saying it's giving names. Call the track delicious. A pretty cool name in such a short amount of time. That's quite quality to put then. It gives you the strategy of the track on your track, like about strategy of the TT, etc. Heartland speaker, etc. For the studio breeze. Good luck. Which in the third to show.
So this is just a fun example of another sort of application we built with Formula One in order to help users create sort of fictional race courses. But the interesting thing about it was that it does this automatic analysis of understanding what the formulas should be named, how fast they should be taken, what the race strategy should be, and it uses some of the historical data from racetracks to understand how cars should go around this track. So this is actually leads to also with Formula One. They have a lot of data from historically. They have data coming from racetracks for decades and decades, and it's very hard for them to surface some of that information in certain applications. For example, if you have live commentary or if you've got automatically generated commentary, sometimes that can feel very static and feel very not very unaware of contextual information or historical information. Formula One have a historical data repository, or HDR, which contains all their race information and statistics from all these decades. And they've built a response augmented generation system which allows the different services to pull information from there, and that will enhance the content they're delivering to users. So instead of just saying this is the fastest lap that someone's ever done on this lap on this track, they can actually say, well, this is the fastest lap for these tyres in this condition, this time of year, when these particular manufacturers are racing. So by allowing the systems to get much more historical data rapidly, they can give, again, much more engaging, enhanced experiences to the end users. So there's a couple of I won't go into too much detail on some of these because they may not all be entirely relevant, but I just want to call out quickly. FanDuel in the States are able to scale up to a huge number of, I think there's written here, 12 million bets during the Super Bowl. last year. And they have to do that in a very weird sort of regulatory pattern, in that they have to have infrastructure in each of the states that they operate in, all the states that are legally allowed to have sports books in. So the ability for them to be able to spin up and scale out their operations in each of those individual jurisdictions, following all the relevant regulations and compliance rules there, is a real big challenge. They were able to do that with AWS whilst also improving performance and keeping the time down. In fact, when they first migrated to AWS all the way back in 2013, I think it was, they moved a lot of their streaming services over without even missing a single frame. So this has been a really good success story, but it's really more about scale and regulatory compliance more than anything we're going to talk about AI.
And a quick one around Benajay Entertainment. Again, something that could be interesting around horse racing is that they managed to migrate over 200,000 hours of IP across 130 plus production companies in 23 territories. What does that mean? That it opens up the opportunity for them to leverage AI and ML for automated metadata management and indexing. So this helped them further explore that art of the possible through that migration of 200,000 hours.
And this is something I want to call back to the challenge we raised earlier, is that as those people say, it's very hard to get hold of these data sets. In some cases, you may already have the data in sort of like an unstructured format. It might be already historical video footage. It might be in handwritten notes, whatever it is. Systems like this allow you to extract some of that meta information, relevant information from those unstructured data sets and turn them into relevant data that you can use to train models, you can use to enhance the experiences. So I think a lot of the challenge we see now is that there was a case where we lack structured data, but we now have the capability to unlock a lot of that based on of historical data that you might already have access to. On top of that, just another side note of this is that we also have a sort of data economy within AWS, and that's sort of effectively like a data marketplace, in that when you have data that you've accrued and procured over time, then you're able to share that either through clean rooms or through a data exchange to interested parties, and vice versa as well. So there's a lot more data available to you than you think you might have in your database. So Favbet, they've got three things they're doing here. The more interesting one's fraud detection. The other things they're doing is personalization, I mentioned before, so the ability to use AI and ML to create more relevant user experiences based on their historical usage. They're also looking at churn detection, which is something we'll talk about in a second. But fraud detection, nice, easy thing for them to do. Just able to look at the patterns of people as they onboard onto their platform, looking at their behaviors, and then identifying the users that are more likely to be running fraudulent systems. So taking advantage of app flyers, coming through saying, here's a free bet. We can spot the people who are most likely to be doing that fraudulently, taking using bonus abuse, and that simple sort of like high-level filtering system is saving them $50,000 a month. So it's very economical for them to run this, we know the cost of acquisition in this industry is so incredibly high that this is a way of keeping the insurance down. So the churn detection, this is not necessarily the one that they're using, but we talked about some of the other capabilities that you can have in AI and ML without having to write any code or creating your own models. An example of this is being able to identify when users are likely to move over to different operators. So what we can do is by looking at the first few interactions of a user or user interactions over time, we can identify when they're more likely to start to move over or start to think about moving their work over to another provider. And that's the point that we want to actually interject, or we want to raise an outbound marketing campaign at them and say, right, we're not saying we think you're leaving, but we can say there's a good reason you should stay. Here's some benefits. Here's some offers. Here's what's relevant to you. Again, like servicing that experience to them. And this is all. This is an example of sort of regression graph that you can have based on some of the features on the left-hand side here. But this is all generated through SageMaker Canvas with no code and no AI ML experience necessary. You just sort of put in the information, or I think raise a number of active days, how long they have the account for, how long their sessions averagely last, their non-promotional spend, the sort of information. If you can feed it that information, have that information available to SageMaker, then SageMaker can figure out the rest, and then you can categorize. Here's the ones that are likely to leave or who have historically left when they've reached certain thresholds, and then you can use that as inference layer to be able to say that these are the people who we think are on the cusp, and we should campaign them separately or differently. So PlayerX is another example of churn prediction. It's been used. I think a lot of things to call out here is just the results. So in the 1 week of predictions, they were within 95% accuracy of which users were likely to leave, and so they could interact with those users and try to keep them on board, try to keep them engaged, and that makes a big difference to both the LTV and customer acquisition, customer retention statistics, which is what we aim for as an operator. But again, the same things can be used in multiple cases as well. So finally, almost finally, just a little bit on responsible gaming. So at AWS, we have betting gaming is an industry for us. Like my role is entirely betting and gaming. I don't work with any other industry. I only have one customer as well. So I'm very laser focused on this. And as part of the industry globally, we try to build out best practices and tenets about what we should run by. One of those is the main one is responsible gaming and player safety. We sometimes refer to this as the some of the health of the industry or sustainability of the industry, because also we don't want this to become a problematic place either for players or for operators or for horses or whatever it might be. We want to make sure that this industry stays healthy and it can maintain itself and doesn't show any risks. So for that reason, we have a number of different solutions that we've built and guidance that we've built for the industry. One of them that has been very popular is a series of guidance that we've released with, first of all, with Databricks. We then re-released it also with Snowflake, and we've also just recently re-released the guidance from Amazon SageMaker so that you can sort of pick and choose how it is. But we've created a workflow, guidance workflow, so an example of how you can run this, to take in data that you have from your existing platform to identify signs of problematic play, and again interject with those users and try to find a way that you can get them help. Worst case, obviously trying to suspend their accounts or put them into exclusion lists. But this is an automatic system that can identify risky behavior. It's something that was becoming more and more of a basic expectation in the industry. And so it's something that we've been quite invested in from AWS perspective of building these solutions with our partners as a show to the rest of the industry, saying this is what you can do. It's very straightforward, it's very easy. And we see it as a basic expectation, but we see this being as a table stakes for any operator that runs in the industry. We think everybody should be doing this and it should be improving all the time. We also have a couple of partners who work with us in specifically in fraud detection. So these are some of the highlight partners. We have partners who also work with us as in ISVs and data providers, also with different platforms that you can run on AWS. These are the ones I want to highlight here because fraud detection is a major area for us and a big area of investment for the industry. These are the three that we work with quite often, and we've had great successes with them. So if you want to learn more about the work we do in both generative AI and also in regulated gaming, I encourage you to follow these links, and we'll be able to send these out to you as well. I would also just like to open it up now for any questions people have, either broadly around betting or gaming or anything we've covered here.
Yes. Hi. Please forgive me for playing devil's advocate here. But if predictive AI gets too good, then that is an existential threat to betting on sports. Yes. What's your view of the probability of that happening?
It's a good question. That's something I've been looking at recently as well and sort of researched this. So the question was, if we see that predictive analytics, especially with generative AI, becomes too good, how can we sort of defend ourselves as operators or as data providers? Now, I say there's two ways I've looked at this. The first is that you can't just go and ask a model, can you predict the outcomes of this? Right? It's not going to, it will hallucinate something, you'll come back with a rubbish answer, and you've got a 50-50 chance it might be right. So that's probably one thing we can exclude straight away. No one's going to go on to ChatGPT and just say, can you just tell me what I should be placing bets on? However, there are sort of like slightly more advanced uses where I think someone came out couple of days ago on showing how DeepSeek was able to beat a lot of hedge funds investments. And what they did is they actually used 5 or 6 different more advanced model types that have a complex chain of thoughts. To not just predict what it thinks based on its ground knowledge, but to go and do the research and understand what the market is like and what they're basically looking for exploitations in arbitrage between different market values. And then using that information, it was able to beat the market. So that information will always be available to end users. What it's done is it will probably democratize that a lot more, so there'll be more people doing that. Because right now you can go and create your own models, and people say that can be in the know. I can beat the bookies. Most cases they can't. Most cases they're just clicking a lot of numbers that stick together, and it works out well for some people, doesn't work out for everybody else. So I think there's always going to be an element when people will say they can do that, and I don't know how much to be backed up on it. I don't think just because of the nature of sports betting that you'll ever be able to actually come up with more information than is already available. Like, it's not going to have any sort of deep insights to it. The risk is that the common or even probably more larger betting syndicates, as in professional gamblers, will outpace the ability for the quant teams and trading teams in an operator, and that's a bit more a reality. Ultimately, all it means is just going to be short margins. It means that the operator is going to have to constantly pull down the amount of winnings to the point where it's very unattractive to end users, and that might make it more attractive to bet markets or player-to-player betting, where you can still get silly odds. But I just see that as being you might be more likely that you'll see the common bettor will be able to go on to these more complex algorithms and say, go and do the research, find out where I can just make 1%, and it will help them do that.
Like add something into that as well. So interestingly, in the past 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we announced our partnership with the NBA and how we are looking more into the statistics and field goal percentage, injury percentage, and other aspects within that sport. How my view is more on the user perspective is that now they have more of a reason to be involved with the sport, more data points to look at, which means like, hey, I'd like to bet more on this fact within the responsibility factor, obviously, but gives them more reason to be involved. More reason to be involved means more engagement, more number of users to be part of it. That's what we were seeing with the NBA, with the NFL, and to all other customers as well. Giving them the opportunity to explore other factors, that just opens up even more doors for your customers.
That's a really important point. So we're seeing like an explosion in terms of the data that's being collected. So the Bundesliga at the moment are collecting millions, 3.5 million data points per match. I think they track the motion, the position of the ball and the players every 25 times a second. And if that's used in a normal trading algorithm for working out for sort of making a simulation, doing it 40,000 times, figuring out what the result's going to be, you can get that's usually the edge that you're going to have. Now that data becomes the real differentiator. The syndicates I'm talking about before won't have the same level of data to be able to predict that. So they won't even with all the fancy models and everything else available to them, they won't have the data that's driving sort of in-play betting or even anti-post or post betting. So I think there's still going to be or might even be tighter restrictions on how that data is made available to people. The data that's made available for something like horse racing internally within this room is going to be very different from the one that's available to someone reading the racing post. And you won't be able to use generative AI or even DeepSeek models to get more information out of the racing post than is already there. What it may be the case is that you can start to generate some of that same information. We talked about gait analysis. We talked about some like the facial recognition of horses. If that becomes more democratized and people are actually starting to look at that and say, oh, I'm using my phone, I can watch this horse run by, it says the horse is looking tired, or when it's doing the walkout in the before the race. Now that's probably more information that's normally reserved for very advanced bettors who might believe it more in the know. So that could become a little bit more opened up, but I don't know if that will be enough to really affect an entire market, because there's not going to be that many people gathering that sort of raw data needed to swing the market.
So,
If I wanted to build a model, what are the benefits coming to you guys to do the work versus doing it in-house, getting the finished scientists, etc. Build and run the model.
Yeah, well, so I mean, the main difference is we still want you to keep the data science. The question, sorry, was what's the advantage of using AWS to develop a model as opposed to doing it in-house? There's the first thing is that you mentioned there is you already got data scientists, which is correct. So that's half the problem, or more than half the problem solved. Data scientists are rare beings at the moment, so keep hold of those as long as you can. What I'd say the major difference of someone who already has a data science team is that you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. So the reason why AWS exists as a starting point is that you don't have these cases where you'll then have to go and buy a lot of expensive equipment and a huge capital expense to go and build a data farm that you could then use to generate really complex models and then infer against them and then have to refresh it every year or two. As this becomes especially the case when you're looking like accelerated instances, because you're using GPUs, you'll be very hard pushed to get the capital investment to go and buy a bunch of H100s from NVIDIA, rack them up and pay the electricity bill. Whereas if you go to AWS, you should say, I want this amount of time, I can use it for running my model. But we can also provide specialist hardware. So we have our own chips that we've developed in-house, which are called Inferentia and Trainium. And they are much more efficient at training models that are bespoke to individual industries. So you see this being used in both financial markets, but also in anything from consumer packaged goods all the way to retail and travel, where people are making a lot more inclined to make their own smaller models or even their own large language models, whatever it might be, that are specific to their industry. It doesn't mean they don't need the data scientists, because you still need data scientists to be able to prepare all the information and understand the flow from how you go from raw data to inference, and that's still an important workload to operate. But if a customer doesn't have that expertise, then we have tools available that allows them to sort of overlay that with automated processes. So if you've got the data, and I mentioned Canvas before and show that screenshot. If you have the data and you don't have data scientists, you can still get ahead. You can still create your own models. But the biggest advantage, say, in your situation, it would be that you don't have to worry about the hardware, the infrastructure. A lot of that is managed pretty much all of it's managed for you.
Yes. Sorry, stop if I may. Certainly for the best in gaming industry, I can't help but feel that AI and ML has been like teenage sex. Right? Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
Very few people are actually doing it. What's your opinion on it? Is the things are actually under-exploiting the capability? And the second question is on a slightly different track. At the risk of posing exciting few rights owners in the room, with the enhanced capability that AI and ML brings, does that make data inherently a lot more valuable?
Okay, well, great questions. The first one was about teenage sex, I believe. I'll go with it. So the first one, it is a reality. So I can't specify particular case studies or use cases that we're exploring with some customers right now. I will give a flavour of some of them that they are sort of very seriously looking into. I think one of the biggest areas, which is sort of a horizontal use case, is in coding development. So Amazon Q Developer and Kiro being able to accelerate the team's innovation. So that's just an easy start of a 10, where every one of our customers is already starting to use this advanced coding capability just to speed up their coding capabilities. And that just gives them just a performance enhancement over time. The second is that they are looking in a lot of dimensions of building custom models, but they are starting to use agents, so agentic AI, in a lot of decision-making processes. And this is something where you wouldn't be able to normally use deterministic computing models to run a particular workflow. You do need some level of generative AI's capability to think about something, reason something, go and research something, come back with relevant information, make decisions. All those things are actually starting to be used in sort of more complex workflows. And those can, I'll try and give us more of an example, but in the case of a user coming through to request a password reset or asking for a bonus, you get a lot of people coming into operators and saying, I was using a service, it timed out, I want 10 free spins. typical thing they ask to do. Now, what the agentic capability is shown to do already is that they look at their betting history or the stint history, identify if they did have any issues, determine what the lifetime value of that user would be, and then either tell them to take a walk or to give them free spins. And that whole process can be done autonomously from end to end now. And that's a realistic sort of use case that we're doing today. There is a lot of talk about, I think, some of the probably like the worry at the other end, which is saying like, will it replace jobs, and will it do a better job of predicting the outcomes of sporting events than we can do as operators and data providers? And I think that's probably a little bit more of the bear case of like, this is if it goes really horribly wrong. And I think it's more likely that we're going to see a lot more operational benefits, and then some of the customer benefits we saw before, like having enhanced user experiences, are probably more, and those are realistic examples. The second point I'll start with data becoming keys. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, so the data providers in this room and the people who have the rights holders or who have access to the raw information are going to become the critical aspects of this, because what we expect is that everybody will be able to create their own models as specific to their markets and specific to their users, but they will be reliant on high quality data that comes from, and that's the hardest thing to get hold of, and hardest thing to get. It's the thing that's going to differentiate you from everybody else. And you think about some of the bigger operators, some might be in this room, they will say they're differentiating. In fact, they have their own trading platforms. They're not going to take raw odds or true odds from a data provider and just slap them on the front. They'll carry them, stick a margin on them, throw them on the front page. What they're actually doing is they're actually running their own simulations. And that is the only thing that's going to distinguish them from being from just rehashing the same odds you get from a data provider. The danger, the challenge of that is that they have to have the exclusive, or at least they have to have agreements with rights holders to get that data in order to process it, run the simulations, generate the trading odds, expose it to the end user, and do all of that in less than 180 milliseconds. So that's where it becomes like a lot more of a challenge. So yes, one aspect is the data, and the second part is you're taking on more of yourself as a data consumer, and that becomes a bit more of a challenge as well.
I'd like to add to that as well, some quick ones. For the first question, the interesting question, when it comes to that, I'll give you the perspective from the wider industry, not only from the betting and gaming, but also from the media and games, which are, again, somewhat of a cross-industry perspective. I've got customers that have departments of 100 employees solely focused on AI, ML, automation, AI agents, just doing that to maximize productivity in-house and efficiency within the company itself. Fully mature, fantastic. You've got the other side of the spectrum. You've got companies, they don't have that. So what do? They've got amazing ideas, and they're like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Who's gonna build it? They don't. I'm seeing more of those companies, and that's why I can relate more to your question, is that we are facing we are seeing companies going through that. But the trend is going more towards the spectrum of building more AI knowledge, AI enablement. And again, we're saying AI, but the fact it's all about automation, it's all about agentic AI, it's all about understanding the data and what data you have. Which brings us to the next part of the question. Yes, data is crucial. And it's continuously growing. That's inevitable. It's continuously growing, and it's your asset. If you ask yourself, what am I doing with that data, and you're doing nothing, it's better to explore what other things could be done with that data in order to improve whatever use case in your scenario. Having an asset untouched is unrecommended.
Yeah, there's a really good point, and I think I want to have some more context to this. But if you are looking at what people are talking about, if they're not doing it, what they're talking about, there's a lot of people are experimenting. They're just trying things out. A lot of people will be using ChatGPT or other common end user AI services, and this is a bit of a shadow IT issue as well. We've seen quite a lot of companies that saying like, all my employees are putting in our sensitive data, literally uploading PDFs into goodness knows where, we was given free tokens and asking sensitive questions about our operations and our data. We have to stop that. So one thing that's coming is very quickly is, first of all, yes, experimentation is really, really good. We want people to understand the limitations and capabilities of AI in general. But second is that customers, when I say our customers, our operators are scrambling to build out governance frameworks and understanding what they should and shouldn't allow, where there should be guardrails, where there should be limits, what should be blocking and what should we be allowing through and encouraging. And then also to Z's point about like how do we then sort of educate people, how do we turn this into training that can scale out to every user. Ultimately it will lead to an increase in productivity, but it has to be done relatively safely. I think the problem with generative AI capabilities is that everybody's starting to see what it can do. They want it really, really quickly, and there's a challenge for any company, any organization, not just in this industry, to try and make a framework which fits around it, but encourages experimentation, encourages innovation, but keeps security and protects everything in the same time. And that's probably realistically where we're at right now. People are trying to hit that curve as quickly as possible so they can get to the sort of virtuous end, which is agentic.
That's a quick one. We've got some great B2B tools here. When does AWS Bets launch?
Yeah. Did you not see the announcement yesterday? No, sorry. Okay, so that was actually a half serious answer. I don't get paid as it. So a couple of years ago, or a year or two ago, so the question very is when does AWS Bet come out? I would talk about B2B all the time, but obviously AWS has a habit of producing what customers are asking for, and so when there's a lot of demand for something, AWS produces it, right? So, would there be an AWS Bet? So it's kind of two answers. One is absolutely not, no way. There's first of all, Andy Jassy's not given his blood type to the Nevada Gaming Board, right, ever. So that's not going to happen. The second thing is we actually did release guidance this week on how to run an event-driven sportsbook on AWS. And that's something that I wrote about a year and a bit ago. And the code just got released on the MIT open source license yesterday. So if you want to run your own sportsbook on AWS, it costs about, well, I don't know the exact numbers. It doesn't cost much to run. It costs a couple of cents a day if you want to do it. Probably costs $1 a month to run it. If you run about 20,000 bets a day, I think it costs about $20 a month to run. But the reason why we brought this guidance out was because we have a lot of operators coming to us and saying we're struggling with scale, we're struggling with being able to interact with other services. And we had customers coming to us saying that we're having to replicate databases and replicate those replications just so we get data access to other third parties. And we said, well, you should really start working on event-driven. And we built this guide. So basically a full-blown sportsbook. You can place bets, you can open the wallet, you can view odds, and you can suspend and end events, and you can get, and there's a fulfillment system that pays everybody out. So we have actually built a full-blown sportsbook, but it's completely open source, and the purpose of it is to show how modern architecture practices can help unblock a lot of the challenges that we see in this industry. So it's, yes, AWS Bet is available, but it's not for the purpose you think it is. I'll see if I can send out a link to those people if you're interested in running it yourself. But we're also encouraging people to, as open source, run it, play around with it, break it, add your own data to it, add your own spin on it. We're asking people like database providers to enhance it with their own database technology and explain why it works. And then that will help us as an industry understand what those benefits are.
Thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, we'll be outside. If you need any help with your challenges, we'll be outside. If any of this stuck to you and you're like interested to know more because we can't cover everything in details, we'll be outside. Coming from the best jockeys in the world, hope you had a great session.
Yeah, thank you very much.